the iCloud. Tonight, our Knit University, Cindy is going to talk about taking care of your knits, finishing your knits. We all spend a lot of time with our projects and our knitwear, and we spend money on the yarn. And so it is important that we know how to properly care for it, or how to block it, what to do with the project afterward. And Cindy, tell us a little bit about your knitting story and how long you've been knitting.
I've been knitting for years. My grandma taught me when I was about 9 or 10 years old. So I've been knitting for 50 years or more. So kind of took a break when I had kids, but really back into it. And with COVID, really back into it. So spend a lot of time. I love it. Reminds me of my grandma. My grandkids, they request stuff. Everybody likes the knitted socks. So keeps me busy, keeps me going, gives me something to do with my hands. So I enjoy it a ton.
Fabulous. Well, Cindy's a beautiful knitter, and I know she does a really good job of finishing her work and taking care of it. And, you know, in the past, we've kind of let you ask questions at the end, but if you have a question, just do your hand, you know, on your screen, you can raise your hand and then we can call on you. I'll watch for that, Cindy.
Okay.
We can call on you so that we can get the question asked when the time is right, kind of thing. You know how it goes. You got it, and then you forget it 5 minutes later. So Cindy, go ahead and tell us about it.
All right. Thanks for having me tonight. I really appreciate you guys letting me come and talk to you. I'm going to kind of talk about finishing your knits and crochet items, not necessarily putting them together, but after you have them together, how to take care of them. You guys, like Angie said, you spent a lot of time invested in making your items and a lot of time in the yarn. And it really can't be considered finished until you've blocked or steamed it. So while you're knitting and crocheting, no matter how careful you guys are, if you wash your hand, you store it in a bag, it gets handled a lot, and you need to kind of refresh your piece after you've completed it. And we all try to knit or crochet at a very even tension or gauge, but we don't always. There's always 1 or 2 knit stitches that look kind of loopy, or we kind of got loose for a couple of rows. So blocking and washing and taking care of them afterwards, we can straighten and even up all those stitches. I block everything. I block my hats, my mittens, sweaters, socks. I block everything. It just makes them look so much brighter and fresher when you get done with them. So tonight we're going to explore cleaning handmade items, and followed up by different ways to knit and block our crochet items. And then at the end, kind of storing our items when we're not wearing them in this cold, wintry season. So there's several methods we can use to clean up our knitted fabrics. And the choice kind of depends on the fiber, if it's cotton or wool or silk or whatever we've used. The stitch patterns, lace, you know, knitting, we need to take, it's more delicate, that type of thing, and how large the item is, and also your personal preference on finishing up an item. I know Angie likes to steam a lot of her stuff. So it's just kind of your personal preference, what you like to do at the end when you finished your project. Cleaning your hand knit, on your label of your yarns, there are going to be suggested methods of how to care for them. I suggest keeping those labels, especially if you're going to gift the item on ahead, or just kind of keep it with the item, because it's going to say if it's hand washed, dry clean, machine washable. And I think we went over labels in Knit University, or we're going to. Kind of tells you different ways to take care of them. Most of the knitting yarns that we use can be washed. Sometimes it's appropriate to have them dry clean though, especially if you have like a bad stain while you're working on it, or you know, something you just don't want to risk. You've spent a lot of time on making it, that you want to go to your local dry cleaner. And I suggest just looking in your area, talking for recommendations in your area, whatever town you live in, where the good dry cleaning place is. In Lincoln, I use TLC Dry Cleaner at 48th and Old Cheney, and I think they have a location on 70th Street. Beth knows when I bring in a sweater and it doesn't have a label that I've made it. And they take great care of all of my items when I take them in there. So there's different ways that you can do them. You can dry clean them. You can hand wash them. And you can machine wash them. And Angie sells a product, it's called Eucalan. That's what I use to wash all of my stuff, especially when I'm blocking it. And we'll talk about blocking that, which is what I'm going to talk about next, which is in the book, Principles of Knitting, which is kind of the knitting guru Bible, kind of looked at it. And they talk about dressing your fabric, which is the same thing as blocking your fabric. So it really refers to finishing the fabric after you've washed or cleaned it. So there's different ways that you can block. So one way that I like to do is to use it with the Eucalan, which is called a wet block. So you would fill up your basin with some cool water, add a little bit of Eucalan and leave it soak in there for about 15 minutes. Then I kind of let the water out of the sink and then I just kind of smash it against the side of the sink. Don't wring it or, just kind of grab it and just kind of crunch it up. Then I get out a big beach towel, lay it out, and I kind of roll it up like a hot dog, and then I stamp on it. So that's what I've washed it and now I have it prepared to block it. Your hand knit really only needs to be blocked the first time after you've made it. After that, you can just take care of it. So once I've done that, then I will go. Angie has great things in the shop. A lot of people will just lay it on a towel on a bed or on the floor to block it out and air dry it. But Angie sells these great mats that have a gauge matching thing that you can use that. And she has these great rainbow knit blocker pins that will help you pin it out. You can also use, which I learned from my grandma, is a little old-fashioned T-pins, which you can buy as well. So once you've gotten it all wrung out and ready to lay it out, you can lay it out and block that all out and you can let it air dry. That's one way you can do it. A lot of people will put it on a bed like under a ceiling fan and it'll help dry it as well a little bit faster. The other way, and depending on your fabric and your item, steam blocking or pressing is a good way to do it too with your iron. You don't really want to touch your iron onto it, onto your fabric. So you can use like a pressing cloth, like an old flour sack, dish towel or some cotton. Just it will help protect the fabric because your iron sometimes might get a little bit hotter. You can kind of steam it, kind of get it, it'll get a little moist, and then you can kind of pin it out if you need to. So there's other things that we can use when we're doing that. And I didn't grab mine. For lace, Angie sells the little wires that you can tuck into your shawl and you can pin that all out, which will help block it, especially for those very delicate lacy things that we've knitted. For socks, she sells these little sock blockers, which are great even when you wash them. Sock yarn, definitely you can throw them in your washer inside out and wash them. And then I put them on my sock blocker and lay them out to dry. And that's the way I block them as well. And they really even up all your stitches and make them look really, really nice. So you can wet block, you can steam block, are the main two ways that we do it. And sometimes some big projects, depending what they are, you can take them and just have them dry cleaned and they'll kind of even it all out for you as well. Have any questions on blocking or any of that? Everybody's good?
Does that wash have to be rinsed, Cindy?
No, it does not. That's the one nice thing about the Eucalan. I think there's another product, it's called Soak, but Eucalan is my favorite. And it comes in different fragrances, so you do not have to rinse it out, which is nice. You just kind of let the water out, kind of compress all the water out of it, and then go ahead and block it all out. So different fragrances. I know there's like grapefruit, lavender, unscented. I don't know what the other ones are. So I don't even know what this one is. This one is just no scent. So yeah, great product there. Highly recommend investing in that to do that. So after the end of the season, when we're all done wearing our knitwears and stuff of that, we have to tuck them away at the end of the season, and we want to put them away carefully so that they don't get ruined. First of all, we want to put them away clean. So if you've worn them, like even hats and scarves, I wash them, and so there's no soil or anything like that. And if you have any soil left into the garment or the fabric, it can attract insects and it will weaken the fibers in the fabric. And then you're going to end up with a hole, and you're going to say, what happened here? So we want to put them away clean. And then when we put them away, even during the season when you're wearing them, put them away, fold them in different ways. Don't always fold them in the same way, because we don't want to get those wear lines on the fabric, or in the sweater or in the sleeves. And sometimes you can just put a little bit of tissue paper in between the garment when you fold it up, and that'll help prevent a lot of those fold lines as well. So when you get ready to store them for the winter, a lot of my wool things, I have a cedar closet. So I take them all downstairs and store them down there. But if you don't have a cedar closet, it's recommended that you zip them into a cotton or a linen storage bag. I don't really recommend plastic, especially if you put them away damp. You're going to get some mold, and once again, we're going to weaken the fibers, and then we're going to end up, when we take them out, have some mildew on it then. So put them in something like a cotton or linen storage bag. And the other thing when storing our knitted garments, and I'm sure most of us are aware of this, don't hang them on hangers like our sweaters, because it really stretches them, stretches out the seams, and the fibers will begin to stretch, and then they'll kind of start to look pretty droopy. So it's kind of all I have.
What about moths, Cindy?
What about moth? Well, a lot of people talk about putting mothballs in with their stuff, but then they kind of smell. So that's one of the reasons why they recommend putting them away, in those bags so that the moths can't get to them. Somebody have a question? Elizabeth?
I do. I have a question. Can I?
Okay.
Am I
yeah,
free?
Go ahead. Go ahead,
talk about machine washing, because I had a sweater that I probably should not have machine washed because I got some felting. And so yeah, what can you wash and what can you not?
If you look at your yarn label, it'll pretty much tell you. Any yarn that is 100% wool probably shouldn't be machine washed because it will felt. Wool fibers, when they get wet, they have all these little tentacle things, and they'll interlock, which causes them to felt. I know Mary Teeters before has told me she washes all of her wool, hand washes it on delicate in the machine. So I say if it's 100% wool, I would not wash it in the machine. I usually send that stuff to the dry cleaner, or I will hand wash it myself.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, you mentioned that you block hats.
I do.
Are you blocking them flat, or do you have something that you use to help shape them?
This is my method. I've heard of different methods. I wet block mine, and then I will take a couple pieces of newspaper and wad them up and tuck them up into the top of the hat. And then I'll take a big flower vase and I'll set the newspaper on there and just kind of let it hang over. Some people will blow up a balloon about the size of the hat and stick in there as well. I'm allergic to balloons, so that's not a good option for me. I like the newspaper because it kind of draws the moisture out of the hat faster, so they dry faster, and it gives it a little bit of shape. You can kind of, pull it all out and even up all those stitches as well. So
Thank you.
And if you do, like on a cowl or something, if you do wet block it and lie it down to dry and you don't necessarily pin it, I kind of go in every, few hours and just kind of turn it so you don't get those creases, those lines on the sides.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Cindy, can you talk about blocking to like a schematic? So sometimes our patterns will have measurements, like
Correct.
my shawl, even though it's just a long kind of rectangle, had a measurement, or a sweater kind
A
of thing.
sweater, yeah, definitely. If you have the schematics, and that's when I wet block, I will get out the mats and the blocking pins and my tape measure. And I will lay it out and measure it to make sure that it meets the schematics. I'm sure when you did the gauge thing, we talked about blocking our gauge swatches, and you'll kind of know what it's going to come out to be. And sometimes when we knit, it doesn't always, and a lot of times your fabric will give. And so you can stretch it a little bit to make it a little bit bigger as well.
So that would be my next question is, can I make a piece that's too small, bigger?
Depending on the yard and how much too bigger you need to make it.
I remember when we were doing our stranded knitting, remember those little mittens we did?
Yeah.
The little Advent kind of mittens.
Yep.
And that's when I was learning stranded knitting, and it was so tight. And I thought it's all going to behave better. And it did by blocking it, but I still couldn't correct my problem with blocking.
Right.
That's
right.
kind of a myth.
Yeah. It doesn't always work on everything that you're doing, but yeah, definitely on Fair Isle and wet blocking makes a huge difference. It really expands it and opens it up, especially and lace blocking too. Your shawl that you knit that's all kind of scrunched up and you open it, it just blossoms. It's like a flower that opens up, and it really shows the detail to all the work that you put into your piece that you've made. So blocking is definitely worth the time and the effort to do that. The other note that I will give you just from experience and from a class that I took once at Vogue Knitting with an instructor, Keith, he's a finishing guy. I mean, you can send all your stuff to him and he'll finish it for you for a price. But his note, and I never did it before, but I do now since I've taken his class. He talked about not weaving in any of your ends until after you've blocked your piece, because if you weave them in and you weave them in tightly and you open it up, it doesn't always expand with it. And so they say to block it first, then weave it in, and then your ends are not as noticeable. And he said, whenever you can, always bury or weave in your ends in a seam line. So a new note, and I try to do that a lot now. I wait until afterwards to weave in all my ends. So
the other thing I think, did you learn there, Cindy, from his class that I took from what you had said about starting a new yarn?
Yeah, if you can, and even if you waste a little bit of yarn, he recommends starting a new yarn at the beginning of a row, just so that when you weave it in, you can bury it in a seam. But you don't always knit a garment that has a seam in it. But he highly recommended that, because then it doesn't really show up in your fabric. And his method of weaving in, if you ever have a chance or go online, I don't know if he has classes online, is amazing. You can't even tell that you've woven in the yarn. So it's very cool.
I just took that really to heart, especially like even on this, because it would show, it would really, there would be a chance that it would show. So I know we like to use all of that yarn, but when I was done with the row, that's where I would start my next yarn, not just color wise, but if I ran out of the same color kind of thing. I just think it makes a world of difference.
It does. It really does. Yep. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, question.
Julie? Hi, Julie.
Hi. So on something bigger like a blanket, do you usually need to steam block it?
Your
Just
blanket Yeah, and I sent you
Yeah,
a
like-
picture of my blanket today. I steam blocked it. And it's, I mean, I just laid it out on the carpeting on a sheet and got a towel and kind of crawled all over it and kind of steamed it and kind of, you know, especially like where you put seams together, I try to do the seams pretty well so that they lie flat and look a lot neater. But yeah, I would. And I don't know with your yarn, Julie,
Okay.
that shelter is machine washable, but you could maybe be able to throw it in the washer on
really?
delicate and lay it out flat to dry as well. You'd have
When
to
you
check
said
your,
steam block, you put like the item underneath, like the sheet, is that wet?
no,
And then your towel on
uh-uh.
top?
no. You can do that. You can do like get a sheet and do that, but I try not to touch the fabric a whole lot. I just kind of get it close and go and kind of get that moisture there. So yeah.
Yeah, like this shelter says hand wash cold, dry flat.
Yeah, so you could throw that in the washer on delicate, on cold
Okay.
water, and then lie it out to flat to dry.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I
And by the
think-
way, it's looking marvelous.
Thank you.
I think about the hand wash more, Cindy, isn't it the agitation? So if you wash on
Correct.
gentle, right?
Correct. Yeah,
And then all of us have these front load washers now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then would I still need to tack it down in the
I
blocking?
think
You know,
with
like,
your blanket,
the edges?
I don't think so. I think you just lay it out flat and it'll be fine. The
okay.
tacking comes more with a sweater or lace weight things, and we have those blocking wires for that, or a cowl or a shawl, you know, that type of thing that you want to get it out to lay it out flat to dry. So I think with your blanket, you'll be fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Sandra?
So you mentioned about the agitator in the washing machine. My washing machine has a cycle that calls itself hand wash. Is that
Mhm.
safe for hand wash things?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Do you
Okay.
have an agitator in it?
It does.
Yeah, no, I think it would be fine. Like I said, once again, something that's definitely 100% wool. I don't know if I would trust throwing it in there. You can try it. I mean, I wouldn't try. I send my stuff to a dry cleaner. Just with all the time and money I've put into it, kind of scares me. So, but like superwash merino wool, definitely you can wash.
Okay.
Have any of you run into some challenges? Now's a good time to kind of talk about any challenges you've run into that we could troubleshoot or help you with. Oh, you're all master finishers, huh?
He's frozen.
Oh, Cindy's frozen. You're
Or we're
frozen.
so far lost, we don't know what our problems are.
Yeah. Where'd Cindy go? There you are, Cindy.
I have a
There-
question.
Yes,
I
Susan.
have a situation where I've knitted a garment, had it with me when I was injured, and I'm trying to figure out how to get blood out of it without damaging the colors.
Oh, can't hear you, Cindy. You went off. You got your mic on. There you go.
They can't hear me.
Now we can hear you. Nope. Whoop, that was your camera. You got us
Okay,
on.
can you hear me now?
Yep.
Something like that with blood, I think I would take it to the dry cleaner, Sue, because they will have like some kind of enzyme to get it out. I've never really dealt with that before, so that might be what I do.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You know, I remember when I was first learning to knit and to block, someone said to me, well, does your knitting fall on the floor? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
You know how your ball of yarn rolls down down
Yeah.
the floor. And so,
we all-
you think of that, and like I'm walking my dog and we're coming in with snow on our feet, and my kitchen floor is probably not very clean, and my yarn's always ending up on my kitchen floor. So
Yeah.
I think cleaning is a good thing to think about, Cindy, versus just blocking.
Well, and just think on day to day, we have oils on our hands, we're putting lotion on our hands, we're putting hand sanitizer on, and then we pick it up. We don't always go and wash our hands before we go to pick up our knitting to work on them. So we get all that stuff on our fabric as well.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else we can help you with tonight? Well, Cindy, thanks. This has been great.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, thanks for having me so much. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I know that she every season cleans all of her knits. So I think
Yeah,
that's
I do.
I think that's very admirable. I can probably say, well, I just haven't ever done that. So that's a good aspiration to take care of. Save all your pillows, right? Your pillowcases. Do those work as well?
Yep. Yep.
Put your quilts in, put your pillowcases, put your wools in that. So I think we're all inspired to be better at our cleaning and blocking. So thank you, Cindy, and
You're
thank
welcome.
you, everyone. Stay warm,
Everybody stay warm.
knit on, and we'll see you again. Okay, bye-bye.
You.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.